Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the News Roundup here on iThemes Training. It is April 2023, and every month we take a look across the world of WordPress news and bring together the things that we think are the most important for especially those of us who are building and managing WordPress sites for clients. So glad you joined us today. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the host at iThemes Training. And if you are just joining us in the chat, there is a link in the chat to download the slide deck, and all the slide decks we use here are important, but this one in particular because it has all the links to all the stories that we're covering. If you want to read more or get more information about any of the things, it is there. So let's get started as we usually do with news from Core. And the clicks aren't working. Let's try this again. We'll get started with news from Core. There we go. Talking about what's going on in Core WordPress. We had a major WordPress release drop a couple weeks ago. WordPress 6.2 dropped on March the 29th, called Dolphy. It was named for Eric Allen Dolphy Jr., a jazz musician who was really known for popularizing the bass clarinet. 6.2 is mostly a release focused around the block editor and the site editor, although one notable non-Gutenberg inclusion is bringing Openverse into the media library. So the top features of WordPress 6.2 include a much improved site editor. If you've done any playing around in a sandbox with a block-based theme, the full site editing experience was not awesome, and it's gotten a lot better now with WordPress 6.2. So the whole interface there has been redesigned and rethought, and it's easier to get into the templating system that is possible with a block theme. There's now also global style controls built into the site editor, a new style book that will help you manage global styles, a new pattern inserter, which is just super cool if you use the block editor, a new distraction-free writing mode. That's been missing since the block editor came in way back when. The old classic distraction-free WordPress writing mode is now back, and it looks really good. It's very useful. There's now a new navigation inspector for the site templating to do navigation blocks. You can now copy and paste styles from block to block, which is really helpful. They also have a custom site-wide CSS panel like the customizer has. Of course, if you're using the site editor, the customizer is no longer there, so you didn't really have a place to put your global CSS. Well, now you do. And also now in WordPress core settings, there is block-specific CSS that will just apply to the block that you're putting it in. So that's very helpful new features as the block editor, the site editor continue to evolve. Now, one notable non-Gutenberg addition, as I mentioned, is bringing the Openverse media collection into the WordPress media library. Now, Openverse was previously called the Creative Commons Search. And back in 2021, Automatic acquired that library and took responsibility for maintaining it. And I thought way back then, they're probably going to bring that into WordPress. And with 6.2, they have done just that. So the Creative Commons search has now called Openverse, has over 600 million creative works that include images, audio, video. They're all free to use, although some might require attribution. So you want to check that. But it's really easy to access right here from within the editor. Click plus, and just right there in the media, and you'll see right here the option to browse right into Openverse, and it drops that image right there. So pretty cool feature. WordPress 6.2, if you're really following it, you may have noticed it was released one day later than the scheduled date because right at the last minute, there was a bug discovered in some of the code and the way dates were formatted. So they paused it a day, fixed that, tested that, and then rolled it out one day late on March the 29th. The question after a big WordPress update is, anybody having problems with the update? And now this is totally my experience and what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing anyone having issues after updating to 6.2. It's just, it seems to work really, really well. We've updated several sites ourselves and no problems at all. So update with caution, always make a backup, but it looks like this is a pretty safe release, because it's mostly about the site editor and the block editor, not a whole lot of other things that are, to deal with. So if you'd like a total overview of all the things that are in WordPress 6.2, our own Timothy Jacobs back on April the 5th, we did a webinar with him. Timothy is, of course, the lead developer for iThemes Security. He's a WordPress core committer. and one of the maintainers of the WordPress REST API. Timothy walked through all the features of WordPress 6.2, answered a ton of questions, and that webinar is available right here at this link if you'd like to go back and rewatch that if you missed it. Another really good take on WordPress 6.2 comes from the founder of Cadence WP, Ben Rittner. Ben posted a very thoughtful article about the state of full site editing in WordPress. Full site editing, of course, is the stage 2 of Project Gutenberg, which is focused on bringing the block editor to all the parts of WordPress. And with 6.2, the site editor officially moves out of beta. It is, however, only supported in block themes. Now, if you're a Cadence user, Cadence is not a block theme. So that's one of the reasons if you're using a Cadence, if Cadence is your theme, or if you're using any other theme that's not a block-based theme, you're not going to see a lot of changes with the site editor because it's not enabled. You have to have a block theme to have that enabled. So Ben gets into a lot of those things and how to test and look. And it's a great article there on the Cadence WP blog at the link that I have here on this slide. Good stuff. The dates for WordPress 6.3 are out. The alpha has already been released back on March the 9th. Beta 1 is scheduled for June 27th. Betas 2 and 3, the 1st of July, with a release date looking for August the 8th. So proceeding right down. And there is, by the way, a call for volunteers on joining the release squad for 6.3. By the way, you don't have to be a developer to join the release squad for a version of WordPress. There's lots of ways you can contribute to WordPress. Take a look at this link right here, a call for volunteers. Sometimes it's documentation, other things that just about any fairly technical user of WordPress can take part in. And that's a great way to give back to the WordPress community. So I just mentioned that full site editing with the site editor was phase 2 of Project Gutenberg. And now phase 3 of Project Gutenberg is in the planning stage. This is the collaboration stage of Project Gutenberg that's going to focus on real-time collaboration across WordPress and something that is misspelled right here. I think I was rewording this and got interrupted or something. So real-time collaboration across the WordPress platform is the top priority in this phase. That's what we're talking about. So basically, if you are using WordPress with a team built, and then there's a bunch of plugins right now that can help you process through, content revisions and so forth. A lot of this is coming to core, and it's going to be really great. So the goal here is asynchronous collaboration, including drafts and inline block commenting, better version control, which has been needed for a long time in WordPress, a task management system, so like a big to-do list that's kind of built into WordPress. All of that is coming to core, and with the goal of enabling users and teams to collaborate better inside of WordPress. That's pretty cool. Other areas of focus in phase 3 are better publishing flows, a better post-revision interface, an update to the WordPress admin design, which is long overdue. I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I believe it was WordPress 4 where the current like what we see now is the WordPress admin. That's when it was rolled out. And there hasn't been a major update to the WordPress admin interface for years and years and years since WordPress 4.0. So that's coming. Better work on WordPress navigation in the admin. A library focus area will give you a spot to manage blocks and patterns and styles and fonts better. That's definitely needed. Global search and command components and projects related to the prior phases like adding more blocks, improved tables. That's going to continue on. So really good stuff coming to core WordPress within Project Gutenberg in this phase 3 that is beginning the planning phases now. So pretty cool stuff. All right, speaking of Gutenberg, let's take a look at what's been going on in the Gutenberg plugin. Gutenberg 15.4 dropped back on March the 22nd. Color and layout support has been added for the cover block. It is easier now to customize all the color for all your inner blocks with a single setting inside the cover block itself. So if you've dealt with a cover block, sometimes it's a little hard to make sure all the colors and styles filter down. That is now improved in Gutenberg 15.4. It's going to be easier to handle transformations in the media and text block. And it just kind of gives it more consistency as you're editing through the cover block. It's really nice looking too, the way they've implemented this. And so you kind of see a little screenshot here as well, the new tabbed interface. Inner blocks use, kind of nesting and bringing all the content throughout all the things that are inside that cover block. So that's definitely needed, and they've just dropped that. Also, into Gutenberg 15.4, an updated template description within the site editor. So now you kind of understand what each of these templates are about. If you're a WordPress pro, archive template, for example, made sense. But if you're not a super pro, it would be helpful to have a description, so they've added that. Gutenberg 15.5 dropped a couple of weeks ago on April the 5th. They have added now patterns as template starters. So this is a really interesting addition to the flow of the site editor. So if you want to, for example, create a pattern for a 404 page, or for your single posts page, or whatever, your search results page, that would be like an archive type template page. Now, within this new drop of Gutenberg, theme developers can suggest patterns that might work really well on those template pages. So like here, if we want to add a 404 template, look, here we've got some pre-baked patterns that a theme developer could say, here's some options for you. And so this is really good. I think we'll see theme developers grabbing onto this and using this flow to make site development easier. Pretty cool. Something else that's been missing for a little while is that captions for images can now be styled in the UI, the styles interface UI. Until then, you had to just add CSS someplace. But now there's actually a styles for captions where you can select font typography and size and so forth. That's in this latest Gutenberg 15.5. They've also added, now we're going to see more development on this. They've also added this new experimental grid layout. Now, there's been grid layouts in, the post block and so forth, but this is actually, you can set a width, and then the number of posts will sort of modify to that. Let me just show you what this looks like. So minimum column width is set right there. And as you drag it in, the posts fit. And if you drag it out, they also begin to just sort of fit whatever you've got set. So this is experimental. It's going to be worked on even more, but I really like this, and I love the preview. Pretty neat stuff. All right, that's it for Gutenberg. Let's move on into some security news, and we have a lot to talk about here. The number of plugin vulnerabilities continues to be incredibly high. At the time of these reports, total, there were 77 plugin vulnerabilities that were active, or the plugin has been closed. Now, I will say there are 77 listed here. They were in our weekly reports. You want to make sure that, like, if you see a plugin on this list that you use, make sure it hasn't been patched. So, for example, if it was on the March 29th list, it might have been patched by now, but we haven't caught that for this list. So this is a list of the vulnerable and closed plugins that were vulnerable at the time of our reporting. And there's 77 of them. I'm not going to read all of them, but I will pause just very briefly on this list. And if you see one that you use, then you're probably going to want to just double check and make sure that it has been patched, or that you get that off of your site. Now, of course, if you're using iThemes Security Pro, you're getting those daily site scans twice a day. You would have been alerted for these vulnerabilities already, and hopefully you would have taken action to either remove them or replace them, or do, whatever you need to do to make those, make your site safe. So many plugins vulnerable. We're just seeing that number continue to grow, particularly over the last few months. There was a major vulnerability in the Elementor Pro plugin over the last month, earlier this month. A recently patched security vulnerability in WordPress Elementor Pro is being actively exploited by hackers. It impacts approximately 12 million sites. It affects Elementor Pro version 3.116.6. A patch stack says it allows a malicious user to turn on the registration page if it's disabled, and set the default user role to administrator. So somebody could just log in, create an account with the standard WordPress registration page, and they're an administrator. So that's not good. After this, patch stack says they're likely to either redirect the site to another malicious domain, or upload a malicious plugin or backdoor or whatever. They have admin rights, so they can do lots of things. Successful exploitation allows an unauthenticated attacker to take over a WordPress site that has WooCommerce enabled. So if you are an Elementor Pro user, make sure you are up to date to version 3.11.7 or 3.12 as soon as possible. This is actively being exploited. Another big time WordPress vulnerability in the last month was a vulnerability within WooCommerce payments. Now, not WooCommerce itself, but the WooCommerce payments plugin, which is sort of a white labeled version of Stripe. WooCommerce partnered with Stripe to bring that interface within WordPress. It works really well, actually. It's kind of nice, but there was a major vulnerability in the last month. So WooCommerce actually forced an update, working with the WordPress.org team, to push sites to the next update that were running payments version 4.8 through 5.6.1. This allows an unauthorized access to get into your store, active on more than 500,000 websites. So one thing that's very important, the forced updates was only delivered to sites that had automatic updates enabled inside the settings of that WooCommerce payments plugin. So if you are using WooCommerce payments and you haven't updated, update immediately. Like, stop listening to this webinar, go out and update your website, because this is a major problem and it's being actively exploited, or there's no evidence of active exploit, but you don't want that to happen to you. So make sure you get that plugin updated. If you are a Windows user, major vulnerability in Windows over the last couple of weeks. 7 of the 97 bugs that were talked about in this latest issue were rated critical. 90 of them were rated important. So those are the top levels of severity. They have to do with code execution flaws, and it's a bad deal. It could make your computer vulnerable to an attacker getting system privileges. Kaspersky, the Russian security, a cybersecurity firm, says the vulnerability has been already weaponized by a cybercrime group to deploy ransomware. So this is a bad deal. So if you're using Windows as you're operating on your station, as your operating system, make sure you update your Windows immediately. But not to be left out, Apple also had a 0-day vulnerability in the last month. It affects all of the things Apple, so iOS, iPadOS, macOS, and Safari. Apple has not released details about what the vulnerability actually was, because they don't want to allow people to use it to hack things. Just make sure you're updated. So anything Apple, iPhone, iPad, Mac, Safari, update all of the Apple things, because this is also a major vulnerability. All right, let's take a look at news from iThemes. As we mentioned in the pre-show, and as we have mentioned in lots of webinars over the last few weeks, iThemes is becoming SolidWP. So on April the 11th, Matt Cromwell, the Senior Director of Customer Experience for Solid, introduced the new SolidWP brand in a webinar here on iThemes Training. Solid is the next evolution of iThemes. It provides the solid foundation that you need for every WordPress site that you build. iThemes as a name just didn't really make sense for us anymore, because iThemes itself didn't really have a theme. Like, Cadence is part of our family, but it wasn't really our theme. And so the name, even though it's been around since 2007, just didn't really fit where we are as a company anymore. And so Solid is rebranding and sharpening our focus to our 4 key offerings: security, backups, website management, and training. And it's really interesting, I think, the approach the Solid team has taken to this rebranding project. They've called it a rebrand in public. I'd never heard of this before. I think it's a brilliant idea, where we're just showing in public the process and the progress as we're going, and taking questions and feedback, and modifying some of the direction and of where we're going based on that feedback. Some of you that are in this webinar today were part of a private town hall meeting with Matt and myself, talking through some of these things. And yeah, I love the direction it's going. The brand is beautiful. Here's some other treatments of the Solid S. iThemes Security is becoming Solid Security. Backup Buddy is becoming Solid Backups. iThemes Sync is becoming Solid Central. And not only are the names changing and the brand and the colors, but all the products are going to get some much needed attention in the development area. So here's one of the early prototypes of the Solid Security interface. And I really, really like the direction the UI team went with designing this. So one of the things that a lot of folks struggle with iThemes Security is that the interface is kind of hard to get around in. It might be hard to figure out where you're going and get back to where you were. And so the menuing has now been changed to a more typical WordPress plugin, where rather than sort of subscreens in the same settings page, there are, here's your dashboard, site scans, user security, firewall, vulnerability settings, et cetera. This is the free plugin, by the way. There's an option to go pro, of course. It's a much nicer, easier to navigate interface. I really like this. So a lot of work is being done on the security plugin. Backup Buddy will be called Solid Backups. It's kind of a cosmetic change right now, but a lot of development work is being done on Backup Buddy to become Solid Backups, and excited to see that coming. iThemes Sync, here's just a quick snapshot of what that interface is going to look like as Solid Central, and some development time is going to be given to that as well to address a lot of issues that have been flagged as things that need to change and be made better for Solid Central. So a lot of good things coming. By the way, if you were part of this webinar right here at the bottom, introducing SolidWP with Matt Cromwell and myself, lots of great questions were asked during that webinar, and all of those questions have been answered in a blog post right there. All the questions that were, some questions we didn't have time to get to in the webinar, they've all now been answered as a blog post at that link. Some of the questions were really good with, for example, are the existing lifetime deals, those of you that have a lifetime deal for some or many of the iThemes products, that will continue to be honored. What products in the iThemes current offering are going to be sunset? There's a whole list of them right here. It is some of the plugins that, not many people were using. And so it's better to just focus on the plugins that people are using and put development resources there and focus on making those better. So that's the thought, and the list of plugins that are going to be sunset is provided at this link. Is there going to be a bundle? Yeah, Solid Suite. Is training going to continue? Yes, as the Solid Academy. So the best way to stay up to date here is youtube.com/@SolidWP for the Solid YouTube channel. Pretty cool stuff. All righty. This month's premium event here on iThemes Training is the Digital Marketing Crash Course with Elizabeth Pamplone. That is next week, April 25th and 26th, next Tuesday, Thursday, from 1 to 3 p.m. Central. Every month on iThemes Training, we do a premium event with a subject matter expert. That's a 4-hour event on some particular topic that is relevant to those of us that are building and managing WordPress sites for clients. So day one, Elizabeth's going to be talking about social media. And day 2, email marketing, with the second hour of day 2 talking about how to do digital marketing services like social media and email marketing for clients. So she's going to give some inside tips on how she does things in her agency, and she does a really good job and is going to make all that very practical for us. So that's Digital Marketing Crash Course coming up next week. The link to join for members is right there in the green. Also coming up on iThemes Training tomorrow, don't miss this if you haven't signed up for it yet. Kathy Zant from the Cadence team is going to be with us talking about the new Cadence design library. She's going to be doing a few things with Cadence Blocks 3. If you've not seen that yet, wow, it's pretty amazing. But really focusing in on the new Cadence design library. It is a powerful tool, and you can sign up for that webinar. It is free at training.ithemes.com. Office hours Thursday, Digital Marketing Crash Course next week, and then our standard schedule moving forward from there. Plugin Roundup on May the 2nd. If you're not a member of iThemes Training and you'd like to be, you can do so with a 30-day free trial at ithemes.com/training. I'm not sure, by the way, how the Solid Academy offering is going to work. And if you like the current pricing of iThemes Training, which I think is a great deal for training, it's only $39 a month for all of unlimited access to replays, to all of our premium events. Or if you pay for the year in advance, you get 2 months free. I don't know how pricing is going to change. So if you want to lock in the deal now, you can do that before we make some changes to Solid Academy this summer. All righty, let's talk about some plugins and news from plugins. The GiveWP team has been doing a lot of work around their donation form creation tool. It's currently in beta. It's a new form builder that uses the block editor, and it works in all sections of the Give donation form. Give is a beautiful plugin that empowers nonprofits to raise funds with some really creative and powerful fundraising techniques. It really brings tools into WordPress that some nonprofits pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for bigger platforms to do. And so Give really brings that sort of fundraising power and makes it available inside WordPress for even small organizations. And the ability to customize the form has been something that Give has been working on for a while. Everything is now in the block editor. It's able to be edited and changed, and custom fields added. and so forth. This is a standalone plugin. It's still in beta, so not for production sites, but you are able to do all of the things. And so if you serve nonprofits, this is definitely something to play around with and see how it might be able to work for you. Something else we found interesting was a post on the Gravity Forms website. I know a lot of folks here in our audience use Gravity Forms. Gravity Forms OpenAI is a free plugin that integrates Gravity Forms with OpenAI. And so how interesting is it to do something with form responses and ChatGPT? That's what this is going to allow you to do. So you can communicate through the OpenAI API using live merge tags within your form, and then get real-time responses from ChatGPT right there in your form in an HTML or a text field. AI-generated responses can be used to create confirmations, notifications, or even add form fields. It works with GPT 3.5, which is 10 times cheaper, more intelligent, and better. It's really cool. So some of the use cases might be generating articles, doing SEO research, qualifying new leads, processing support responses, verifying documents, extracting info like contact details or meeting tasks, and then moderating submissions. Really cool stuff. So there's a great video about this right there on that YouTube link. I think this could be a lot of fun to play around with if you're a Gravity Forms user and you have an OpenAI API key. Pretty neat stuff. This is another bit of news from Gravity Forms that I absolutely love. So if you're a Gravity Forms legacy user like myself, I've had a developer license for a long time. I was a little frustrated, to be honest, that a lot of the new Gravity Forms plugins they were developing, like geolocation, Google Analytics, conversational forms, and entry moderation, those new premium add-ons were put in a different tier that wasn't available to me as a longtime Gravity Forms user and paying customer. They've changed that now. So if you are a legacy grandfathered in developer license, or if you bought the Gravity Forms lifetime deal a long time ago, you can log in right now to your Gravity Forms member area and you'll see all these plugins are now there. They have now made those available to everybody, and I applaud that decision. Thank you, Gravity Forms. Moving into some Yoast SEO news, Yoast has now dropped support in their latest version for any PHP less than 7.2.5. So you got to be running 7.2.5 in order for Yoast to work. So also, by the way, and with this release, they've added a really nice Google Search preview, a lot better than before. I kind of like that. So they've dropped support, though, for PHP 5.6, 7.7.1. About 10% of WordPress sites are running a version of PHP that is less than 7.2, which is a very vulnerable version of PHP. So hopefully this will give a little nudge to some of those WordPress sites that are using Yoast to go ahead and update their PHP at their host. Historically, Yoast has been a force for change in pushing users to upgrade PHP. This latest version of Yoast also requires at least WordPress 6.0 in order to function. There was also a drop of the WooCommerce plugin. 7.6 was released earlier this month. 7.6 was primarily focused on WooCommerce blocks, but it also has a few different bug fixes and performance improvements that have to do with some of their new database tabling. So it's really good. 2 new blocks were added, especially if you're using the site editor and the templating in full site editing. 2 new blocks were added to make that easier. A single product details block for your single product template, and a really cleverly designed and functional cart form block. So this is not going to help you, for example, unless you're using a block-based theme. So if you're a Cadence user, this doesn't work. It's still in development, and Cadence has its own way of doing this with ShopKit. So, but the WooCommerce blocks will help block-based themes with some new things. So here, for example, is the product details block, where you can kind of drop things in on your design for the product page. You've also got some additional filters that you can use in a product grid to pre-bake a product grid. They've also added some new block patterns that if you're a Cadence user, you can use. They are more consistent, the margins are better. This has been kind of a problem with WooCommerce blocks. They get a little weird when screen sizes change. So this should bring some consistency to the blocks and the block patterns that are pre-developed by WooCommerce. Pretty cool. There's also a new multi-channel marketing tool. We mentioned this a couple months ago in a news roundup. Basically, inside the marketing area of WooCommerce, there's now a campaigns card that will allow you to create campaigns and advertising campaigns on various platforms, like, for example, Google Ads. And so right from within WooCommerce, you can create a new campaign by attaching your accounts on different platforms like Google Ads, Pinterest, TikTok, Amazon, and eBay and Walmart integration, and see all of those things happening right there inside of WooCommerce. So that's super powerful. It is in beta, so it could be a little buggy here and there. But yeah, if you have a client or if your website needs to get out to multi-channels to sell, this brings it all in-house right inside of WooCommerce. So pretty cool stuff. All right, let's take a little journey into the world of AI, shall we? There are many things happening in the AI world, as you've probably already experienced. Wow, this is a pretty cool month, though. There is now a new Zapier plugin for ChatGPT. So zooming back out just for a second, in the last month, OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, released a plugins API, much like WordPress released a plugins API way back in the early days of WordPress, that allows people to extend the capabilities of the core with some other things. And so OpenAI has done that. They've given an API where other platforms can tap into the power of GPT. So Zapier has taken advantage of that. So the Zapier ChatGPT plugin connects 5,000 plus apps like Google Sheets, Gmail, Slack, right into ChatGPT so that you can do some things with this. So it works with all Zapier plans, and they're rolling this out slowly to ChatGPT Plus users right now. So you do have to have a paid account with ChatGPT for this to work. So take a look at some of the use cases here. Drafting messages, sending emails, updating databases like this. Here's a Gmail integration. So this is in our Zapier. Now we're talking within ChatGPT to Zapier. Find my latest email from Lars. So it looks it up. Zapier connects to Gmail, pulls in the details of the email right there. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, now that it's in ChatGPT, you can do some things with it. Craft a response, do this, do other things. It gives you the ability to tap out to other places and pull things in. Also, here's something similar with Slack. So here we are in Zapier setting up an action, and here's a use case. Summarize this leads details, share it. Here it comes. There's the lead. And it shares in Slack. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. You could also use this with Notion. So here's our same email. Now, can you check and see if he's on the Notion lead list? If not, can you add them? Okay, it's not in the leads list. Zapier's checking. Nope. So I prepared this entry. Does that look right? Yep. Does that look right? Yep. Run it. And now he's on the list. So this is just a few of the very beginning things that are going on with this Zapier integration. We're going to see more and more services integrated, lots of cool use cases. Really, really amazing. All right, it's also coming into WordPress. So there's a great article on the Tavern talking about how WordPress developers are experimenting with native AI blocks. So developers are trying to figure out how can, instead of doing something in ChatGPT and copying and pasting the stuff into WordPress, how can we interact with ChatGPT right within WordPress? So it goes back to this plugins API and being able to attach things together. Joe Hoyle of HumanMade, which is a WordPress plugin company, showed an early preview of how generative AI could work natively in the block editor. Wait till you see this. So let's click here. What do you want to write about? Okay, what is my tone? So pick a tone. What is my writing style? All this is from within ChatGPT. So I want to see 5 tips for WordPress security. And, now you've done this maybe in ChatGPT, but here, write it here in the block editor. And now look, we can go in and highlight one of the things and ask AI to improve or simplify the language. And boom, there it went. Isn't that amazing? And this is all experimental. It's still, people are figuring this out. make this longer, improve this, and, whatever, right there within the block editor. Look here, translation. Let's translate this to Urdu. Boom. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, another developer, Munir Kamal, who is the founder of Gutenberg Hub, has created a native AI writer that was inspired by the way Notion integrates with ChatGPT. So check this out. If you thought that last example was cool, watch this. So we're going to do an article about Artemis. List me all the moon landing attempts. And there they are. That came in from OpenAI. Okay, now, great. Make that into a table. Now, we're in the WordPress block editor right now. Add another column with each landing program's budget. Boom. Wow. And now, sort it by the year. Boom. Pretty amazing, right? Now, make a hero block with a dark background and white title that says the new moon landing countdown. Look at this. It knows what a title block is. Make it title case. Add a call to action that says discover now. Boom. Absolutely amazing. Write a short paragraph about the upcoming Artemis landing. There you go. Make it longer. Make it shorter. Make it a different language. Absolutely amazing. Make the interesting words bold. Now, how does it know that? How does it know that? I don't know. It just makes them bold. Absolutely amazing. Link the relevant terms to their Wikipedia page. Absolutely unbelievable. Make it 3 columns, placeholder image in each column. I mean, look at this. Now, typing all this is a little frustrating, but what if you were dictating this? Imagine the accessibility implications of this for folks that struggle with a mouse, or they could literally compose technical, pages with layout verbally. Absolutely unbelievable. So when I see these things, I'm like, right? What's happening in AI is absolutely unbelievable. Now let's look at the other side of AI, shall we? Article published on The Verge last month, why the AI industry could stand to slow down a little bit. So yes, AI is moving faster than anybody could ever imagine. And there's a group of technologists that include Elon Musk, one of the founders of OpenAI. They've written an open letter calling for a pause in AI development. The letter claims that the pace of AI advancements might surpass society's ability to adapt and process them. The journalist Ezra Klein said society's going to have to figure out what it's comfortable having AI doing and what AI should not be permitted to try before it's too late to make those decisions, right? Before the toothpaste gets out of the tube. Yeah, so it's interesting. This is definitely something to follow. If you've not watched this interview, it happened actually just this past Sunday night, Sunday, April 16th, the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, was interviewed on 60 Minutes, and it's about 30 minutes long, and it's absolutely worth a watch. I've given you the YouTube link for this interview right here. I would strongly encourage that you watch this. Pichai said that AI is going to impact every product across every company in the near future, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. He's called for new regulations to govern AI. I think we have to be very thoughtful. These are all things society needs to figure out as we move along. It's not for a single company to decide. I agree with that. There's a lot happening with AI. It's scary to some degree. Pichai warns that AI is likely going to create job losses among knowledge workers like writers, accountants, architects, and software engineers. Now, before you get nervous, the best AI quote about this topic that I've heard, we shared last month. It comes from Sujay Pawar, the founder of Brainstorm Force that creates Astra and Ultimate add-ons and all those things. Sujay said, computers didn't replace accountants. Accountants that use computers replaced accountants that did not use computers. And that's a good analogy. It's for AI. So some of the lower end content, I saw somebody in the chat earlier, earlier, it's not so much that all content writers are going to be phased out. It's that basic content writers are going to be phased out. Yeah, like we got to be more creative and more clever and continue to embrace this technology. That interview continues. The Google CEO said, "We don't fully understand how it works." That's comforting. So in the interview, Pichai admits that Google doesn't fully understand how Bard, the Google AI, comes up with some of its answers. He explained some bizarre scenarios where Google's AI developed what he called emergent properties or learned unanticipated skills in which they were not trained. For example, Bard taught itself the Bengali language, and Google doesn't know how. So people in the AI world call this phenomenon the black box. They don't get it. They don't understand it. And that's really something, isn't it? Yeah, Barney's saying in the chat, it's like Skynet. Yeah, it's happening. It's out there. So while AI can be very lifelike, and it can be very intelligent in its responses and very helpful, we have to be very careful to not take everything an AI chatbot says as fact. Sometimes chatbots report incorrect information. My goodness, I've had that happen over and over again. In using ChatGPT, for example, to write code, it messes it up a lot, and you have to know enough about what's going on to suggest maybe how to fix things. In the AI world, they call those things hallucinations for the AI. And you see that sometimes, like I'll ask it to summarize an article, and it brings in stuff from other places, and it just makes things up. And so nobody solved that problem yet. They're not quite sure how it works, but it is an amazing thing that's happening right now in our own time. You know, this is the increase of AI in our world today is potentially the same impact that the internet brought when it first came on the scene, and people really started to understand the power of what an interconnected group of people could do. And by the way, that's both good and bad. Like it's the internet is the best and worst of mankind, and I'm afraid AI might be the same way. But it's an amazing tool, and it's going to be fun to see how that develops. In the continued AI problem issues here are this great story where Google and Microsoft's chatbots are citing each other in a misinformation showdown. So Bing's tool, Microsoft Bing's tool, incorrectly claimed in the last month that Google's Bard AI was shut down, citing a news article that was just a joke. So they've rushed these chatbots to market without ensuring, fact checking. I'm not sure how they'd even do that. So they could cite each other's mistakes, but here's a screenshot of where this happened. Has Google Bard been shut down? Yes, it's been shut down on March 21st after less than 6 months. Blah, blah, blah. That's totally incorrect, right? So who knows? This is a problem that has to be solved. They're already spreading misinformation by inventing new stories or promoting non-existent books. So we need some sort of caution and oversight over this. I don't know. I mean, smart people are going to have to figure this out. I'm not sure the answer to it. WordPress is certainly in the mix. WordPress plugin developers are adopting AI-powered tech and building it into their products. WordPress developers are using ChatGPT to build plugins, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Developers are reporting better success developing code with ChatGPT rather than Bard. But one thing for sure, that AI and AI tools are opening up development to people who would not otherwise be able to create a plugin without hiring a developer. And I would say I'm one of those people. I've done some really cool things with ChatGPT in a code sense over the last couple of months. I would never have even tried it because it was too complicated. But knowing a little bit about how things work, I was able to create code that actually worked. That might be a fun webinar, actually, huh? Maybe. So here's a tweet from Armando Cerna. I've never coded a WordPress plugin in my life. I just did with the help of ChatGPT 4. In about 30 minutes, I worked through it, and there we go, right? Amperly says ChatGPT developed a WordPress plugin for us in just 3 minutes. Now, these would be very basic plugins, but nevertheless. So how is WordPress.org going to deal with this? Developers have already started submitting AI-generated plugins to WordPress.org. The plugin team is warning developers that code submitted must be GPL compatible to meet our standards. They say you're welcome to use whatever tool you want to build plugins, but you are 100% responsible for that code if you choose to host it here. So here's the thing. Who knows where ChatGPT gets the code, right? It may be crawling code that is not GPT compatible, and that's on you as the plugin developer. So Very interesting, and we'll have to see how that sorts out. ChatGPT did have a bug about a month ago where you may have noticed it was down for quite a while. Yeah, there was some issue on the back end where some account things were happening and some payment information might have been leaked. It was kind of a weird thing. Chances are extremely low. It had to do with a bug in the Redis database that ChatGPT uses. Really something. A few other little bits of AI news. GPT-4 in a test hired a TaskRabbit worker by pretending to be a vision impaired human. So GPT-4 was given a test to check the accessibility of a website, and it actually went out and contracted a TaskRabbit worker, which is, if you're not familiar with TaskRabbit, you can go hire a human being to do something very small, a micro task. This is an interesting read if you're interested in AI. Also, Bing brings ChatGPT into iPhone, and it's pretty darn cool. This article says there's 3 other lessons Microsoft can teach Apple. Here's the Bing work on the iPhone. Pretty cool. Also, it's been discovered that reliably detecting AI-generated text is mathematically impossible. So there are tools out there that purport to do it, but the reliability of those tools is in question. And also, this is something I mentioned way back when we had the LastPass issue last year. The issue is not how long it takes to crack a password today. The issue is next year or 2 years from now. How long is it going to take to crack a password for your stuff that's been stolen and currently encrypted, but maybe not in the future? AI technology is enabling password cracking even quicker. So take a look at that article on 9to5mac.com. All right, a little bit of other news. When it comes to accessibility, the U.S. Supreme Court is hearing a very important case that relates to an ADA tester who is suing hotels. So Deborah Laufer filed hundreds of lawsuits against hotels, claiming that their websites were not compliant with ADA rules. Now, her goal was to make websites, hotel websites, accessible to people who would not be able to access that. They have, it's sort of visual impairment or mobility impairment of some kind. The district court dismissed, and appeals court ruled in her favor. The real issue here was she didn't intend to visit any of these hotels. She was just going out. She didn't book anything. She was just simply testing the websites, and that gives, does she have legal standing to sue? It's a whole thing. It's an interesting story if you want to read the story on CNN, but the court is going to take all this into consideration, and this will be a ruling that will help to provide some precedent and guidance around accessibility for the future. So take a look at that. It's really interesting. By the way, most of the hotels that she is suing are, and particularly the one that's involved in this Supreme Court case, the Atchison Hotels. It's a really small hotel that just doesn't have the resources to make its website accessible with the booking process and all that. So I don't know, it's a hard decision. It's a hard issue. They argue that lawsuits like this burden small businesses and clog the judicial system, as you would expect a business to argue. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this sorts itself out. It will certainly, whatever this ruling is certainly going to set the trajectory for accessibility law going forward. All right, WordPress 20th anniversary swag is out there. If you want to take a look at mercantile.wordpress.org, there's a new Code is Poetry t-shirt, as well as a whole bunch of other things like coffee mugs and bandanas and that sort of thing. Some acquisitions have happened in the WordPress space. The Real Big Plugins collection has been acquired by LearnDash, our sister product under the Stellar umbrella. This is a great collection of plugins for LearnDash. It includes a gradebook, Slack integration, MailChimp integration, and ConvertKit integration for LearnDash. So good job, LearnDash, for grabbing those folks and bringing them in-house and making them part of the core offering. Advanced Ads was required by Monetize More, and the Change WP Admin login was acquired by the WP Experts. A couple of other things that we saw that were interesting. There's a great blog post if you want to learn more about WordPress security on the iThemes blog. What is a file inclusion attack? Sometimes you see that in a security vulnerability report. There's a very good explanation of what that is right there on the iThemes blog. And the 6.4 update for WordPress, which is scheduled for November, is going to be the second all-woman and non-binary release squad for WordPress. So watch that. It is going to drop later this year. A little bit of community news to wrap things up. WordPress Buffalo is scheduled for May the 6th, WordCamp Montclair, New Jersey, June 24th, And the WordPress Community Summit and WordCamp US is scheduled for August of this year in Washington, D.C., and WordCamp Omaha in October. So several planned US WordCamps are on the books. So, hey, let's buy some plane tickets and meet up there, huh? That's going to be fun. Hopefully I can get back out on the road this year. Looking forward to that. Some global WordCamps as well. WordCamp Europe in Athens is the second week of June, and WordCamp Jinja in Uganda is in September. So I mentioned earlier that WordPress is turning 20, and there is a resource link there at wordpress.org about organizing a WordPress 20 celebration. If you have a local meetup, or if you want to make a local meetup to celebrate WordPress's 20th birthday, there's all manner of resources right there at the link in the green. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today, folks. That is all of the news for April 2023. I'm going to share the slide link once again there in the chat. If you came in late, you can download the slides at that link. So you'll have all the links that we talked about today. We're back tomorrow with Kathy Zant talking about the Cadence Design Library and the very cool things that it brings very, very much power into the block editor. And of course, office hours Wednesday for members. That's it for us today. We'll see you back here tomorrow on iThemes Training, where we go further together.